Good morning, and welcome to our breakfast edition of Sunday dinner. Today we're going to share a family favorite, which is our smoked Gouda Chorizo breakfast quiche. This is a great recipe to share with family or friends when you're traveling, when you need to make a breakfast for several people that is truly delicious and really unique. What you're going to see here, this is a mashup of the influences of the area we live in, which is Southeast Texas, that has a lot of influence to Mexican food and those ingredients that are involved. And you see it's kind of a mashup of true breakfast classic meets Southwest classic and the flavors that we're going to combine here. As you can see here, I have all the ingredients here in front of us, which we will list in the description below the video. So please go check out our Facebook page and YouTube page, Sunday Dinner, and subscribe, and you can see all this wonderful ingredients below, and we'll share with you throughout the process. With that, as you can see, one of the first steps here is we're going to need to cook the pie crust. We did use pre-made pie crust. If you have a great recipe you enjoy, go ahead and use those pie crusts if you want. If not, if you need to make it a little quicker, we use the deep dish Pillsbury pie crust, works perfect. One of the first steps that's really important though in the recipe is to pre-bake the pie crust. And we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to get everything chopped and get this video moving, but we can't wait to share this with you. All right, I want to quickly run through the ingredients here as we start. As I mentioned before, we really started by pre-baking the pie crust. It's a really important part of this process, as well as before you put them in the oven, it's important to poke holes all throughout the pie crust to avoid bubbling up. And you can kind of see here on this one on the edge here, it's slightly bubbled up, that's fine. But by putting holes in the pie crust prior to baking them, it will help from the bubbling process. The next thing we did, we already put here, is a very, very thin layer of refried black beans. If you prefer refried pinto beans, go ahead and sub. Our family prefers the refried black beans, and that's what we use for this recipe. Here, we have 8 eggs, which you can see I've already scrambled. We have 8 ounces of freshly grated Monterrey Jack cheese. We have 8 ounces of freshly grated smoked Gouda, which we really love and adds a lot of flavor profile. We have a little coarsely chopped cilantro. We have about 2/3 of a can of Rotel. We use a standard Rotel for this. We have 2 vine-ripened tomatoes. If you want to use one large hothouse, that would be fine as well. We have about 1/2 of a yellow onion coarsely chopped. We have 1 package of Mexican chorizo, which is about 12 ounces. We have 1 red jalapeno, which is an over-ripened jalapeno that we got out of our garden. And here we have a little kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper. And what we're going to start here with today is some extra virgin olive oil. As you can see, I already have a hot pot here. We're going to start here. Probably put about a tablespoon. Very, very hot. All right. We're going to sweat these onions down for 3 or 4 minutes. And as always, as we cook onions, very important step, we're just going to kind of lightly put some salt in it to help release the flavors of the yellow onions. All right, we're gonna let this cook, like I said, for about 3 or 4 minutes until they start becoming slightly translucent. At that point, we're gonna add our chorizo as the next step. So we'll join you back here in just a couple minutes. All right, now that our onions have been sweating down for 3 or 4 minutes, you can see they've kind of turned translucent and starting to caramelize here a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and add my 12 ounces of chorizo. And as my son Warren reminded me, one thing that we did here is we chose a pork chorizo. They do make a beef chorizo. This is a San Miguel chorizo. We got our local H-E-B market that we really love the flavor profile, very tangy, fantastic. But you can use the chorizo of your choice. What we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna let this brown. It's gonna take another 3 or 4 minutes. And once this starts to brown, we're gonna add some more ingredients. So as you can see, I'm gonna try to chop this up. It comes in the classic chorizo tube, in which we've taken out of the casing, and now we're just browning. All right, smells fantastic. Tangy Mexican spices combining here. As you can see, I'm trying to just break up the big chunks as a key. All right, so once this starts to brown, we'll come back and go through the next steps. All right, our chorizo now has been browning for a few minutes, nice and distributed. We're now gonna go ahead and add our jalapeno pepper, which I've just kind of finely sliced. We're gonna add our 2 tomatoes. Let's get this nice and incorporated. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of cilantro.
looking at it here, I'm not even going to add the whole amount. I just want a slightly bit of the cilantro in here. And as I noted before, we are going to do fresh tomatoes and Rotel. And you may ask why. I find that the freshness of the tomatoes kind of offset the more tanginess, tartness, and spiciness of the Rotel. So that's why we're using both in this ingredients here. So I'm going to let this sweat for another 2 or 3 minutes. And I am going to add just a touch more, just a touch of the kosher salt with these fresh tomatoes and let this combine. We're going to cook this for 2 or 3 more minutes, maybe only 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add our Rotel. All right, so now that our tomato, cilantro, onion, chorizo mixture has sauteed together for 2 or 3 minutes, it's really coming together well. The peppers are now well incorporated. I'm going to add probably about, I'm going to say 2/3 of this mixture to this. And again, we're using both fresh tomatoes as well as the Rotel. And the Rotel really doesn't need to cook much into this process. I'm going to let it warm through for, again, in another 2 or 3 minutes. Then we're going to add our grated, some of our grated cheese next. But I'm going to let this just incorporate for just 2 or 3 minutes. All right, so our Rotel is now incorporated and cooked through. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn the heat off. And we're going to add a little over 1/2 to 3/4 of each of these here. I don't want to use it all, because we're going to use some here on top. See, about 2/3 of each one of these. And that smoked Gouda in this profile is fantastic. And I'm just going to kind of fold this in. I don't want it to fully necessarily just overly melt, but just be nice and cheesy in that classic Tex-Mex flavor profile. Looks perfect. The cheese is incorporating into the chorizo, incorporating with the tomatoes. This is going to be fantastic. All right. So I'm going to let this sit for just 1 second to start cooling down, and then we're going to add to our pie shells and top off with our egg and put it in the oven. As I said, this is a pretty quick recipe, comes together fast, and feeds a lot of people. Okay, so our chorizo mixture is complete. As you can see, we've done one additional step since you've seen me last. And what we've done is we put a ring of foil around the outside edge of the pie crust. And this is going to be, because we're going to bake this for around 30 to 40 minutes, and it's going to make sure that the edges of the pie crust do not overburn and overbrown in the process. So what we have now, I've went ahead and spooned in this mixture, and I've left room, as you can see, on top for the egg and the remainder of the cheese. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to evenly distribute both the smoked Gouda and the Monterrey Jack cheese over both of these. As you see, this is going to be a really tangy, cheesy egg dish that's going to really satisfy your kids as well as your friends and family. All right, just kind of put this in here nice and evenly. It doesn't need to be perfect, nothing fancy. This is all going to melt and create amazing textures in our classic kind of Tex-Mex cooking style. All right. Next, I'm just going to ladle our eggs. It's important not to overfill these with eggs too much. You want to just kind of slowly ladle this in towards covering the top nice and evenly. And this egg is just going to set and bake. That's about perfect for that one. An 8 egg should be right around perfect for 2 of the quiches. I'm just going to go ahead and pour that in there. Now that I'm looking at that, just wanted to be safe. Perfect. All right. I'm going to add a little bit more kosher salt just to the top of both of these. And a little bit of freshly ground coarse black pepper. Again, this is just to your preference. Perfect. And we're going to do this on convection bake, and we're having it on 350. It's going to take us 30 minutes. If you don't want to do it on convection bake, and you do it a standard bake, I would look at it 45 minutes. But it's important to do when you do any quiche is to watch the eggs. As the eggs set, they're ready. We don't want to overdo the eggs and have the eggs over firm up. So I'm going to show you the consistency we're looking for when you see the end product. So we're going to go ahead and pop these in the oven 30 minutes later, and we're going to join you here shortly. All right, so it's been just at 30 minutes. And as you can see here, the eggs have truly set perfectly. We did the toothpick test. The toothpick came out clean. You can see it's nice and browned on top and nice and gooey on the inside. All those flavors of the eggs, chorizo, refried beans, tomatoes really came together fantastic. As I said, this is a fantastic recipe to share with a couple families. Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're hosting some guests over. Serves quite a few people and is truly a spectacular recipe. We really hope you enjoy this, and as normal, leave your comments below. We'd love to hear how you think this turns out for yourself when you try it. So again, welcome to Sunday Dinner Breakfast episode. Look forward to seeing you again soon.